I don't think he can hear us.
I'll take care of it. I'm going there.
No, he's unmuted now, but I think he has the Zoom mute. Like we can't hear the sound.
Yeah. Madhava Kunja Bihari Radha Madhava Kunja Bihari Gopijana Balava Girivarada Gopijana Balava Girivarada Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yashodanandana Brajajana Ranjana Yamuna Tira Vanachari Yamuna Tira Vanachari Ayurada Madhava Kunja Bihari Ayurada Madhava Kunja Bihari Jai Prabhupada Ki Jai. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. So, if I have it right today, we're reading from Srimad Bhagavatam, Canto 10, Chapter 46, beginning with text 8. There's a whole bunch of verses together. Actually, 9. 9 is a bunch together. Do we read 8 also? Yeah, okay. Yeah. 8, okay, and then you're the man on camera. Wow, you have mystic power. Impressive. Very impressive. Yeah. Okay, so then we'll just read 8 together then. Okay, did you call response on that? No, just read it. Okay. So text 8. Prapto Nanda Vadicham Shriman Nimlo Chati Vibhavaso Chana Yagya Paravisatam Pasunam Kuru Renubi. Translation. The fortunate Uddhava reached Nanda Maharaj's pastures just as the sun was setting. And since the returning cows and other animals were raising dust with their hooves, his chariot passed unnoticed. So there's no purport, so we'll go to the next series, home bunch, 9 through 13. And I would remember how in the first canto describes that even if you recite the mantras improperly, it's okay in this age. So keeping that in mind, I will endeavor to read all these verses. Okay. Visarte piyum yad pir Nanditam Shusmidir Dishai Vanvanti Vishtavash Rabir Udo Bardai Svavatsakan Itastato Vilanghadbir Govatsar Manditam Stitai Godoha Shabda Viravan Venunam Nishvanena Cha Gayanti Visha Karmani Shubhani Balakrishnaya Spalanklitadvir Gopibir Gopascha Sublirajitam Agnakatiti Govipra Pitri Deva Chana Vitai Dupavdi Pasta Malyascha Gopavasar Manoramam Sarvata Pushpita Vanam Vijvali Kulananditam Hamsakarandava Kirnai Padma Sandaishtamanditaham. Any questions? You do the translation? Okay. Okay. Translation. We'll not do the word for it because it's long. Gokula resounded on all sides with the sounds of bulls in rut, fighting with one another for fertile cows. It's like New York at night. The mooing, the mooing of cows burdened by their udders, chasing after their calves, with the noise of milking and the white calves jumping here and there, with the loud reverberation of flute playing, and with the singing of the all-auspicious deeds of Krishna and Balaram by the cowherd men and women, who made the village resplendent with their wonderfully ornamented attire. The cowherds' homes in Gokula appeared most charming, with their abundant paraphernalia for worship of the sacrificial fire, the sun, unexpected guests, the cows, the brahmanas, the forefathers, and the demigods. On all sides lay the flowering forest, echoing with flocks of birds and swarms of bees, and beautified by its lakes, crowded with swans, Karandava ducks, and bowers of lotuses. Beautiful verse, very short purport. Although Gokula was merged in grief because of the separation from Lord Krishna, the Lord expanded his internal potency to cover that particular manifestation of Raj and allow Uddhava to see the normal bustle and joy of Raj at sunset. Om Ganantamiyam Nishandanan Andana Shalakaya Chakshu Meditamina Tasmai Shri Guru Namaha Shri Titanamano Vishtam Stapitam Nina Bhutale Swayam Rupa Kadamayam Dadati Swapanam Jai Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shri Vasadi Gaur Bhaktivedanta Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Ram 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 Hare. So is the volume okay for everybody out there in Zoom land? Okay, good. I see a couple of thumbs up. Okay, great. Okay. So thank you for the opportunity to be here. I haven't been in New York or the Bhakti Center for some time, so it kind of worked out like this. I'm grateful that I don't know who was scheduled for today, whoever you are out there. Thank you for allowing yourself to do Bhakti. Okay, my basis, I live in Washington, D.C., and I'm the GBC. I get bumped all the time. It's part of like, if you're a local person, when you go someplace as a guest, they make space for you. If you're at home, you're the one that makes space. So I appreciate the opportunity to speak. So I was thinking, actually, this is a very sacred space we're in. I stayed with Vasudev last night, their home, very kindly, and walking down the streets of New York, 12 blocks on the way. And it's not a very sacred space out there. There's all kinds of inauspicious things that are advertised and promoted, and the remnants of last night's inauspicious things are lying in the street. I assume they clean it up because at least some of it. Reminded me of London, because at least in the past, the London temple, there was the temple and there were two bars on each sides. And there was a straight bar on one side. I think they've changed it now. There's a straight bar on one side and a gay bar on the other side. And at night, when you would leave the temple, everybody's like the Gita says, everybody's coming alive at night. And you're like, the day's over for devotees, so you're going home and you walk through all this kind of bizarre and still attractive things, at least for some conditioned souls. It looks really exciting. All the guys are looking like really young and strong and handsome, and the women are looking beautiful, and they're all standing in line outside the bars waiting to get in and have a good time. Until you come back the next morning for Mangalarti, and then you see the remnants on the street. I remember very vividly, the streets are covered with trash and liquor bottles, and there'd be just like a few couples left. I can remember like on the other side of the street screaming at each other, "Let's go home." And literally like smells of vomit on the street. And it's like, you think like, okay. So last night it looked like pleasure. And this morning you see what's the result of this endeavor for pleasure. So it's not necessarily a sacred space out there. It's sacred in one sense, in that the whole world is sacred because it's an opportunity for us to reconnect with Krishna. But here, there's a very sacred place. The Lord is here, the deities here, Prabhupada is here, the devotees are here, and we have the opportunity to hear Bhagavatam together, hear transcendental sound. So it's a very sacred place. And of course, here is especially sacred because we're one block from the place where the whole manifestation of Krishna consciousness started and began. And so it's kind of like being the interim of the saint, I don't know the Latin, but like the innermost sacred of the sacred places. We're right near that, so we're very special. So here we're reading about how Krishna sent Uddhava to relieve the pain of separation of the residents of Vrindavan. And I was thinking that these are very exalted, special pastimes. And we should try to understand, I should try to understand how fortunate I am to hear this. We know that this is the 10th canto of the Bhagavatam, which is considered the topmost section of all the Bhagavatams. And it's explained other places. You should read it all and understand it carefully before you go to the 10th canto, so you don't misunderstand it. And the Bhagavatam itself is described as the graduate study of the Bhagavad Gita. And the Bhagavad Gita is the text that gets us out of illusion and brings us to the point of surrendering to Krishna and helps us understand how he will protect us. So there's all these like layers of knowledge that one's meant to awaken to gradually understand these pastimes. And here we're shown in this Bhagavatam, throughout the whole Bhagavatam, but also in the 10th canto, in this section, how it is that the Lord actually interacts with his devotee and protects his devotees. Like I was looking at all the paintings, the pictures, the things that are here, decorating the temple so nicely. And every one of them shows some manifestation of the Lord, and most of them are connected to particular Leela of Krishna protecting and interacting with his devotees. So see this beautiful painting of Yashoda and baby Krishna, and how you can just feel the love between the two of them. And here Krishna's lifting Govardhan Hill and protecting all the devotees from Indra's wrath. And here Krishna's returning from the day in the forest, herding the cows to his mother and father. And in the back, Draupadi's being protected by Krishna. So there's all these, as Prabhupada describes, windows in the spiritual world to understand the nature of spiritual rasa and spiritual relationship. And the whole Bhagavatam is full of this, how Krishna, because the Gita ends with surrender to me, and then the Bhagavatam takes off with, okay, well, how do you do that? And is it so easy? And how do you face some of the challenges? And are there others maybe that have walked this path before, and what can we learn from them? So we learn all about Narada Muni and the Pandavas and Bhishma and Prahlad and Parikshit and so many others, how they gradually awakened their love for Krishna, the challenges that they faced. Like Prahlad had a few challenges. We may think in our lives, sometimes we face some challenges, but we read about Prahlad Maharaj, we realize my troubles are pretty small. I don't have any elephants trying to crush me. There's no point. I mean, I have to go to work, but there's really no poisonous snakes with that kind of Shakti that are there trying to do me in, etc. There may be some demoniac looking people as you walk down the street once in a while, but they're not carrying tridents trying to poke you and all those things. So, we have our little challenges, but nothing like they do. So by studying the Bhagavatam and hearing these pastimes, we learn about the nature of the Lord, we learn about the nature of devotees, and we learn about the process of surrender and awakening our love for Krishna. So here the Bhagavatam is giving us this glimpse of relationships between Uddhava and Krishna and the residents of Vrindavan. And it's an opportunity for us to think again about how fortunate we are. Again, we know most of the city of New York is sleeping. It's Sunday, so they're probably sleeping for quite a while longer. It's 7:30. It's not that early, but still most people are sleeping. But here we are having an opportunity to read and to hear about the actual pastimes or a glimpse into the spiritual world. And I was noticing last night as I was driving, I drove over from New Jersey, and you go by some pretty big condominiums and things that are very expensive. And I mentioned yesterday, I spoke at 2nd Avenue about how sometimes people kind of like to show off, and like they seem to leave their windows open even after dark so you can like peer in and see how rich they are. But that's some people, but generally you like close the curtains, isn't it? If you're at home, you close the curtains, you know, and people that have some opulences or some wealth, they're very private about it, isn't it? They close the windows, they lock the doors. I was in South Africa a few years ago, and I don't know, hopefully things are better, but the security was so bad. Remember, I visited one devotee. They had a gate that closed electronically with barbed wire around the top, with dogs inside the gated area. And when we went to the house, there was 3 or 4 locks, literally 3 or 4 locks. And then there was a steel door that came down between the downstairs and the upstairs of the house. That was because the security, you know, there were people, it wasn't such a safe place. But even in safe places, we see most people, like here we're reading, you know, Krishna's like, hey, here's what my life is like, check it out. But most people, they lock their doors, right? They have very thick walls. They have guards, right? You go in more expensive areas, they have guards, right? So like a lot of places in New York, there's a doorman at least, and you have to have a code to get in the house. A lot of times they have signs, do not disturb private property, don't dare come here. You go some places in America, they're even more blunt. They have a sign, you step here, we shoot you, right? Those kind of things are there, right? What do you call it? The make my day laws in some states. If you step on private property, you have a right to shoot that person. And, so guns. So that's the tendency of important people or famous people or opulent people. I put up the barriers and say, don't come here, it's for me. So here we're hearing about God, who according to the Vaishnava understanding, according to the Bhagavatam's revelation, he not only has no guards in one sense, he does, but in the other sense, they're not there to keep people out. I mean, there's some of the leelas with the 4 Kumars, no, that's different. But the general mood is, the doors are open. Here's what I do. Just pick up this book and find out about what I do. And by the way, it'd be great if you could join the party. That's the message that comes across there. That Krishna, and he, not only does he not lock the doors, he comes to canvas. I mean, you can just imagine, I live in Washington, D.C., and you don't get into the White House very easily. You can at certain times with certain connections, but it's not like, Mrs. Biden is standing on the street inviting everybody in the house. I mean, they don't do that. You go to Hollywood, same thing. They have the big buildings and the big gates and the guards, and it's not like, hey, even if you're one of my fans, you're invited into the house. It's like, no, go away, leave me alone, right? So it's quite amazing, actually, that Krishna, who's described as the supreme personality, the supreme opulent, he's not hiding all of these things from us, but he's actually going out to the homeless, to the lost, to the decrepit, to the bewildered, to the dirty people, right? Rich people don't want dirty people in their homes. They don't want decrepit people in homes. Compared to spiritual awakening, that's our position, really. But Krishna goes out and invites us, and he actually canvasses, and he offers these opportunities to understand about his most private dealings. So here we're learning how to go there and actually how to join the party. I remember my sister, I had an older sister, she's 5 years older than me. And when the Beatles were still touring, I remember her telling me the story. She was like in her she was a tween, I think, like pre-teen or early teens. And she went to a Beatles concert, and one of her friends said, "Do you want to come meet the Beatles?" And apparently her friend's father owned the arena or wherever where they were performing. And she thought, of course you don't have access to them. So she said no. And she went and sat in her seat wherever, row 5,000 away. Looked down on stage, there they are. And her friend actually went to meet the Beatles. And I'm sure that was like one of the worst things that ever happened in her life. She passed away. Hopefully she didn't think about that at the time of death. I don't know. I was with her trying to chant to help her not think about George and Ringo and all that. But that was a huge letdown for her because she had an opportunity to meet these really, really famous people, and she blew it. So we have the opportunity to meet this really, really famous, important, beautiful, fantastic, all-powerful, all loving person. And, we have to make sure we don't blow it. That's the opportunity that's there in the human form of life. So we know Krishna, he comes in canvases, he sends his devotee, Prabhupada, across the ocean, 2 heart attacks, 7 years of age, no money, no support, nobody from India would help him whatsoever. Went to the Bowery because he actually had absolutely nothing at all. Finally scraped together enough money for 1 month's rent with no sure way of paying for the next month's rent. Rented this little place around the corner, tried to start the movement. Why? For us, to give us a chance to understand Krishna. And we know Lord Chaitanya described, Krishna comes, that's just spoil a lot of things. Krishna came and said, surrender to me. Lord Chaitanya comes, it doesn't even matter. Just, I'm breaking open the storehouse of love of God. Just think of that. A storehouse, love of God. If somebody opens a storehouse in New York City, everything will be stolen before dawn. So they lock it up. Lord Chaitanya comes, throws open the storehouse of love of God and says, take everything you can. And then he says to all of us, I'm a lone gardener. How much of this fruit can I distribute? You please help me distribute it. So that's the mood of Krishna, even more merciful as manifested in Lord Chaitanya. So if we realize this, then we don't want to waste it. As I was driving here yesterday from Washington, D.C., I think it's a combination of factors because of COVID and people being locked up, because people, even more so today, like playing all their video games. And I think because of GPS, you don't have to really think where you're going. The machine just tells you. And I think cars are a little more sophisticated these days, so maybe they ride a little smoother, but people are taking such risks. New Yorkers, you don't know because you're walking most of the time. The dangers that they put themselves and others in. And there were a few people passed me yesterday, like, I traditionally drive 8 miles over the speed limit because it used to be that was the speed you could go and the police wouldn't give you a ticket. It was relatively safe. You drive 8 miles over the speed limit, you're likely to get hit in the back end. People just weaving in and out. And I'm just thinking, you have no idea the opportunity you have in human form of life, and you're wasting it and taking such risks. I had an experience years ago. It was in Chicago, somebody call it, I think Skyline Drive or something like that, like an elevated freeway. And I was driving along 8 miles over the speed limit. Somebody had zoom raced right by me. And then about a mile up in the road, I kind of saw something. And then as I passed by, they rolled over a whole bunch of times. The car was upside down, smoke coming out of the motor. A bunch of people had already stopped, so I didn't stop. And I'm sure they died. They rolled over. So 1 minute they're thinking, wow, cool, I'm really kind of going against the material laws, because materially you shouldn't be able to go this fast, but I'm so cool, I'm so hip, I've got such a good car, I can go against that. And then the next minute they're gone, and who knows what happened. Actually, they had the opportunity to inquire about and understand God, understand Krishna, and they lost that opportunity. They had the opportunity. So we should try to really appreciate the opportunity we have. I remember as a new devotee, I was told that, I never read this, but Prabhupada had said, if we understand our situation, we would run from service opportunities. So we don't waste a second, because we don't know how much time we have, and to take advantage of it. And therefore, the opportunity here about this nature of Krishna relationships is such a wonderful thing. couple thoughts on the nature of these relationships. In verse 3, just where Krishna is sending Uddhava, Sukadeva Goswami describes the Supreme Lord Hari, who relieves the distress of all who surrender to him, once took the hand of his fully devoted, dearmost friend Uddhava and addressed him as follows. Dear gentle Uddhava, go to Vraja and give pleasure to our parents, and also relieve the gopis, suffering and separation from them by giving them my message. So there are certain religious traditions or spiritual traditions that teach this world is a place of suffering. You have to unpack everything. You have to merge everything into nothing, because the best thing you can possibly experience is zero. And Prabhupada describes in Bhagavad Gita, that's the result of frustration, attraction to that kind of a philosophy. And of course, there's so many people think that you know, I was just hearing Prabhupada lecture, atheist philosophy is just enjoy what you can, because there's no explanation behind everything. There's no purpose to everything. We just happen to be here, however it manifested, and enjoy yourself while you can, because when you die, it's over. So different kind of philosophies like that. There's certain philosophies. Again, I'm in DC, Thomas Jefferson, he was a deist. They had this idea that, okay, God sent everything in motion, like a man makes a clock, and then the clock goes on, but he's not really involved. There's other philosophies that say, yeah, God's actually involved. He came once to give you a chance out of your suffering. You better make the right choice, because if you don't, you burn in hell forever. Okay. Vaishnava philosophy is like, yes, you can try to enjoy this material world. It won't make you happy. The reason that you're suffering is because you separated yourself from the source of all pleasure. You have a chance to reconnect yourself or ourselves. And if you don't do it in this lifetime, that's okay. You're going to get the reactions for what you do. But God, Krishna, the Supreme, is such a personality. He'll come again and again and again and again and again. He does come again and again and again. He sends his representatives again and again and again to try to give you the opportunity. But why not take advantage of the opportunity now? Why waste more time? So that's our vision of the Lord, as explained in the Bhagavatam. That he wants to relieve the distress of his devotees. He wants to relieve the distress of the conditioned souls. And that his relationships, when we reawaken our spiritual consciousness, it's a very, very intimate relationship. There's one, it's coming up in a couple of verses I read ahead. I can't remember the verse, I think it's the purport and the commentaries. It says, well, why didn't Krishna just invite, if Yashoda and Nanda Maharaj and all the Vrindavan residents were so much in separation, why didn't you just invite them all to Dwarka? And it's explained because the mood of their worship of Krishna, it would have been awkward for them to come to Dwarka. And it would have been uncomfortable. Krishna wanted to spend time with Devaki and Vasudeva because they'd been separated from him in his whole childhood. So he wanted to spend time with them, and it would have been awkward for his parents and his step-parents to be. So I was just thinking, wow, this is a really far-out concept of the absolute truth. That there's not only people involved, there's people with feelings, and God actually respects the feelings of the devotees and arranges things to reflect what we want when we're purified. I mean, even now he's arranging everything, even things that are bad for us, that we demand upon. He wants, that we want, he arranges for that. But that he's in the spiritual realm, in the spiritual relationship, he's giving these wonderful arrangements so devotees can, he's reciprocating with the individual souls according to their individual desire. So we are conditioned souls, we're not understanding who we are, what our actual identity is, and therefore we're seeking these different types of relationships in different places in the material world. Just like on the web, I was thinking, right, listen, I turn on the radio for a few minutes just to get in the spirit, listen to some Christmas music. And what's one of the songs, 'tis the season to be jolly, fa la 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 la, okay? Happy, 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 right? Okay, nice. Everybody's trying to be happy. Statistically, this is the most difficult time of the year. There's more depression, there's more suicide, there's more family violence than any other time of the year. It's like, huh? You're like, what's going on here? Everybody's singing songs, the streets are full of Christmas trees and lights and happiness, and everybody like just, enjoy yourself. It's like, well, excuse me, something's wrong here. Because if everybody's fa la 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 la, why are they, isn't it? It's like, it makes you think of, whoa, something's wrong here, and that's why, so something's wrong here. So what do? You deaden your consciousness. Have a little more to drink so that temporarily you feel good. And basically you don't perceive things for what they really are, or you take some kind of drugs or whatever. You psych yourself up. You go to a movie where you can forget everything for a few hours. Of course, most movies these days just make you feel more miserable. But that's another thing, And meanwhile, Krishna is trying to give us a chance to come back to him. And therefore he has temples, he has devotees, he has messengers like Srila Prabhupada, and devotees, go out in the street, chant Hare Krishna, and people wonder what's that all about, and they all get purified, and a few occasional ones actually stop to ask, like we all did at one point in time, and realize, wow, there actually is an option. There's actually an option, because it kind of, I think, the evolution in one sense, it goes through, okay, this is all there is, let me try and enjoy like crazy. And some people have some success at that, and then they lose everything. When I first moved to Washington, D.C., I remember very clearly, I wish I'd they didn't have phone cameras in those days, wish I'd saved the article. There was an article, it was an interview, I think it was in the lifestyle section of the paper, with a woman who was married to one of the top, I think, congressmen in Washington, D.C., chairman of some committee. And she was talking about her husband was no longer a congressman. And she was saying how on Monday, she was on the A list of everybody in Washington, which meant if there was a party, if it was important, she and her husband had to be there because they're big people, right? You got to show off all of your contacts. So whatever the party or the social thing was, they were on the top of the list and you really wanted to be there. Okay, so that's the context of it. And she said, on Monday, I was on the A list, quote unquote, okay, quote. Monday, I was in the A list. Wednesday, because Tuesday, the elections, and they lost. So she said, Monday, I was in the A list of everyone in town. Wednesday morning, my best friend would not return a phone call. That is, unfortunately, the nature of this world. Now, some people say, therefore, have no friends. Don't try to be a political leader. Don't try to be successful in this world. It's all bad. It's all rotten. We say, no. Actually, be a political leader. Have lots of friends. Go to lots of parties. But spiritualize it. Put Krishna in the center. And then the nature of relationships changes. It completely changes. And we're hearing about these different relationships when we're studying here. So Srila Prabhupada, the Bhagavatam, Lord Krishna, they're all calling us that there is something higher. Don't be fooled by the reflection. Bhagavad Gita explains everything. We're out there on the streets. It's a reflection. La 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 la. But it's like you want to shake people. Yeah, but it's not at Target. You're not going to find your happiness at Target. And even with your family, families are wonderful. You need to make it spiritually focused, or else that same family becomes a source of distress. I had a nice family. Like I remember Christmas time, it's like, okay, Aunt Audrey was there every year, but now she's not there anymore. Are we going to talk about it? We're just going to she always would sit there. And last year she died and she's not here. And we're just going to pretend like nothing happened. We're going to go on and aren't we at least going to stop? Hello, hey, family members, what's going on here? This year it's Audrey, next year it's this one, then it's this one, then it's going to be me. We're just going to buy presents and decorate the tree and pretend like nothing strange is happening here. So that's where this disconnect comes, when people start thinking, I got to go to church, I got to go to temple. Maybe I'm going to go talk to these Hare Krishna people. Maybe they know what's going on here. And that's why we're here. And as Prabhupada said, if we reconnect with Krishna, we use our time to connect with Krishna, then as he said so beautifully, material life is like a whole bunch of zeros, but we don't want zeros. We want a full life. We want full happiness. We want relationship. We want love. We want expression. We want music. We want culture. We want like a party that doesn't end, that nobody has a hangover. Like out there. And that's what Krishna consciousness is about, because there's all these different zeros. Prabhupada said you put a 1 in front, all those zeros become, instead of 3 zeros, now you have 1,000. And whatever the numbers would be high. If you got 100 zeros, whatever that number is, you put a 1 in front of it by adding Krishna. And I love it. Prabhupada in one lecture, my favorite lecture, my favorite expression. Prabhupada said, just become Krishna conscious and enjoy life with a thrill at every moment. Beautiful. Just become Krishna conscious and enjoy life with a thrill at every moment. So people say, what's your goal? To enjoy life with a thrill at every moment. Say, well, that's what I'm doing. No, you're looking in the wrong place. We tried those places you're looking. So now we're looking in a different place. Okay. So I'll stop because I was asked to leave a little time for questions. Some questions or comments anybody might have? I'm not sure how to look and see.
Refers to the live audience.
Okay, the live on. Okay, any live on? Well, I think these people are live too, but I think I know what you mean by that. I think so. There could be a couple dead ones out there. Hopefully the class wasn't that boring. I don't know. But yeah, anybody in the room? Questions or comments?
If the storehouse is open, then how do we appreciate it?
How do we appreciate it? By tasting it. Yeah.
Sometimes we feel that it's there for us and then we've lost the touch with Krishna.
Yeah.
When we achieve certain balance in life, when services going on, my babies are there, money's coming in, we're coming in.
Can they hear you out there, by the way? Okay.
Can I turn it? Yeah. Turn it around.
Okay, there. Okay, they can see you.
Yeah, when life becomes balanced temporarily, sometimes we lose the touch.
Imbalanced.
When it's balanced.
Okay, when it's balanced, we're in touch.
The devotional service is no longer as urgent as
So
it
now
used to be.
it's out of balance.
Yeah.
When you think like that. Yeah.
Okay, so
Okay.
how do we stay sober?
Okay.
How do we
You mean like when there's some success in life?
some balance?
Sukha dukkha. It's in the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna says you have to tolerate distress and happiness. So sometimes we think, well, I got the distress part. I know I have to tolerate distress, but when the happiness comes, now's my time to enjoy material experiences. But Prabhupada writes in the Bhagavad Gita that the so-called happiness of the conditioned soul is their worst enemy. Because the so-called happiness can distract us from Krishna. And the so-called distress can distract us from Krishna. And the temporary happiness can connect us to Krishna if we remember, dear Krishna, thank you, but only by your grace did I get this nice apartment. I mean, 2%. I walked out this morning. Like you walk out the door and there's a subway station, right? You walk down one street and there's a temple. It's like, well, wow, that was really, there's a joke. Nice joke. Similar to this. So a man's driving, maybe it's a New York joke. A man's driving, going someplace, very important meeting. He's got an interview with a potential boss or big client or something like that. And he's driving, he's got to park his car. And there's no place to park. He's going back and forth and back, and there's no place to park. It's getting later and later and later. And he's finally, maybe, this thing. You know that? Okay. Okay, so he's completely filled with anxiety. He's not a particularly pious person, but finally he's just driven to no other source. He says, dear God, please, please, please help me find a parking spot. If you do, I promise I'll never yell at my children again. I'll be nice to my wife. I won't drink. I'll quit smoking. I'll become a good person. I promise, promise, promise. And then out in front of him, just like 100 feet in front, it's like the sky opens and there's a beam of light right down into the earth. And there it is, a parking spot. Amazing miracle of miracles. And he looks up into the sky and he says, dear God, don't worry, I found my own. Forget what I asked. I just found my own spot, right? So the happiness can help us connect to Krishna. Dear Lord, it's such a beautiful sunset. You are the creator. The sun sets and the sun rises, and you are the most beautiful artist. And how is it possible? And please let me be reminded by this ocean, by the sunset, and by this beautiful day of you, and not forget you. And similarly, dear Lord, by my previous nonsense consciousness and behavior, I've obviously caused a lot of pain and misery in the world. And by your grace, I'm just giving a little token of that, which is a reminder to me to take shelter of your lotus feet. So please let me do so. So that's the way we want to think. The material world is like, okay, I'm suffering. It's his fault or her fault. I'm happy, oh, it's because I did it. The spiritual life is the opposite. We're just by Krishna's grace, there's some happiness. By my nonsense, there's some distress, but it's also his grace because it's minimized so how we connect with him. So that's the way we become balanced, you know. Or, you know, we chant no matter what. We take the shot no matter what. We associate with devotees no matter what. Because there's going to be ups and downs. Guarantees going to be ups and downs. Krishna says that, right? First couple verses in teaching about it. Okay, that's a nice question. So there's a hand I can see. Damodar Priya, your hand is up and you're muted.
Oh, Hare Krishna, Anuttama Prabhu. Thank you so much for class. I just know that you tend to associate because of your kind of seva with a lot of high rollers, so to say. And I was wondering if you have any story or anecdote that you could share with us of somebody who surprised you in terms of their connection to Krishna or God, or maybe just, you know, like one of those Krishna magic moments.
Yeah, I was anticipating your question. I was thinking of all the people that I thought were happy, but turned out to be totally miserable wretches. I got to turn it around the other way. I can think of a very nice story. My Rukmini and I, my wife used to have a business in the airport that was owned by the temple, actually a temple business. And a little different, but there was a woman who was one of the janitors. And I remember Rukmini telling me this lady would walk by cleaning up, you know, very humble position. And they would ask her, she would ask this lady, how are you today? And she would always respond the same thing, I'm blessed. I am blessed. She's making 5% of what the big people are making. Got a very low status in society. She's just like a street sweeper, but she's feeling she's blessed. And we would go to these meetings with the people that owned the mall in the airports, and expensive suits and expensive dresses and very unhappy people, very miserable people. But there are also people, there's definitely people who are successful and who are very, I mean, you know, I never met him, but George Harrison. I mean, there's a person that had everything, but what he really, really wanted was Krishna. And he wrote about it. He wrote about wanting Krishna. He wrote about his own connection with Krishna. And I mean, again, I haven't met a lot of big people who are so God conscious. Some, I mean, I know some people that are active in religious freedom and some people are active in human rights. But I think of things like just, you know, country Western musicians. I don't remember the guy's name. It's a famous song about always be humble and kind. Have you seen that video? It's a music video. It's on Tim, I don't know country music very well. It's a very beautiful song about always be humble and kind. So he's clearly somewhat of a spiritual person, and he's sharing his realizations. It's like a 3-minute song like that. So I have to admit, I'm a little stumped by it. I'll think of it later. Some big person. I don't know so many big people who are really spiritual. I guess I'm not pious enough to find out those people yet. Thanks for the reminder, though. Keep my eyes open. Yeah. Yes. Hand over here. Oh, turn around. Okay. We have 1 minute left, I guess. Huh?
Okay. I always love being reminded about how we have to tolerate distress and we also have to tolerate happiness. And at the same time, you said that Prabhupada said that in Krishna consciousness, life should be a thrill at every single moment.
When we become Krishna conscious.
That's it. That's my point.
Yeah.
That's my point. Yeah, my point is that the job of a devotee, the consciousness of a devotee, is to not be attached to material distress or happiness, but to consciously make a choice to be happy serving Krishna and to know that that's actually how we will be happy.
The choice is to continue,
Krishna.
to serve Krishna, whether we experience some temporary happiness and distress, and gradually realizing that I experience a different type and a higher level of happiness as I become purified. Yeah. That was your clarifying comment. Yeah. Yeah, I heard a lecture once, Prabhupada was describing how Arjuna was saying to Krishna, I understand these things, but still I have to fight my grandfather and my guru, and it's still painful. And Prabhupada said, yes, therefore Krishna said you have to tolerate. Even Arjuna, he's heard the whole thing. He's still got to go out and fight with Bhishma. He'd rather not do that. He still has to fight with the guru. He'd rather not do that. And Krishna tells him, therefore, you have to tolerate. Yeah. Okay. Yes. So, okay. There's time. It's okay. I don't know. Okay. Okay.
Hare Krishna. Wonderful class. You went cruising through this subject matter, and what comes across is your own wisdom and confidence and, realization. Prabhupada's gracing you. Prabhupada's grace is that you're seeing the things so clearly and explaining them. You mentioned that some people are in distress, even though they may not be in such a comfortable or opulent condition. And the Hasidic Jewish people say, who is a wealthy man? One who is satisfied with whatever God has given and goes on in the service of the Lord. Thank you, Lord, for things as they are. How can I serve you under this circumstance? And I remember one time I was chanting japa and I was going through this field with the vegetable gardens, and they had these nets, and there was this bird caught underneath the net. And when I went to try to help him, he was I'm trying to help him, but he was like more anxiety about my own. And Krishna gave me an interesting experience. We had this center in Philadelphia, and I had a very tall loft bed. And in the room, there was a window, it was probably like 2.5 floors off the street. And there was a thief climbing in through the window, but he couldn't see me because I was up in the loft bed. So I was like, oh, and then, I said to him, sir, we have something very valuable for you. He went, jumping out the window. I said, no, wait, come back. So sometimes they think that,
You tried. Nice. 2 nice stories. Thank you. Hare Krishna, everybody out there. Haribol. Glory to Prabhupada. That's nice. Hasidic Jews in particular? Is there like a Hasidic saint or just in the Jewish?
Time for darshan, dear devotees. Please put on your cameras if you can. Haribo.
Okay. This was the class by Anuttama Prabhu. Wasn't it wonderful, sobering and funny? And Shastrik is wonderful. Okay, good seeing everybody. Bhima Prabhu, I saw him live. He's real. And he doesn't smell like a horse. He smells like a gentleman. Okay. Love you all. Have a wonderful Sunday. Chant and dance for Krishna. You are invited to his party. You are on the top of his list. It's not just Krishna Daya who's on the top, all of us. It's available to everybody, anytime. Hare Krishna. Hare Krishna. Take prasadam no matter what.